Hi, you're with Tacitus today, your pushback channel, and thank you for joining this audio live stream. In this essay, I'd like to talk about a number of articles that have been trying to sort of, and we live in an era of just endless lies and endless untruths, endless fabrications, and it's now odd if you see particularly a media outlet or a politician actually being accurate or attempting to be accurate or telling the truth or not fabricating. But anyway, this is a series of articles by the globalist controlled, particularly the more left-leaning side of the globalist controlled media, where they're saying, look, all these cost of living increases, whether it be energy, rent, real estate, and food, and so these are all just completely natural events. There's nothing you can do about it. That's the way it is. Completely natural. Nothing to do with anybody. I mean, which is in itself the most outrageous sort of series of quite grotesque untruths. So they're asserting that first. Then they're saying, well, these cost of living increases, they're not really affecting white people too much. You know what they're affecting? Recent migrants to the West. So if they're black and brown migrants, those are the people that have been most affected, not the white people. Don't you feel sorry for those white people, those old grannies that are dying of cold because they can't afford to put the heating on? Don't you? The real people who are suffering, are the brown and black migrants that have recently come to the West. And if you disagree with that, you are a fucking Nazi. So there's been a few sort of, pathos, I suppose you'd call them, pieces where they've, spoken to particularly Indian. For some reason, they're focusing on the Indians, but on Indian families. So, Prakash this and Soraya that, and so they go through it. So why is Prakash and other Indians suffering? Why are they particularly suffering or uniquely suffering? Well, there's a couple of reasons. There's a few reasons. Well, firstly, Prakash has got no skills, and he actually, English wasn't something that he learned at school, so his English is pretty bad, and he's got no skills. So he's kind of got to drive taxis or push a broom or something like that. So it's really, really hard for him, and the only rents he can afford is a place that's sort of well out of the city, which means he's got to do a lot of traveling to get to the where he works in the downtown of the city or something like that. So she can't work because they've only been here for 2 years, and already she's had 2 children since they've been here. So she can't work. So really, it's really tough on them. But on top of that, since they've come here, they have to send money back to India for their relatives. And because it's something that's done in that culture, that's just how that culture is. And if you got something against that, you fucking Nazi. No, that's okay. So, and of course, they have to go for a once-a-year trip back to India every year. They have to go once a year to make sure that the children are fully connected with their culture. Well, wait a minute. You've migrated to Australia. You've migrated to the West. Surely you'd want to be, involved in this culture, wouldn't you? I mean, if you've migrated here, wouldn't Australia be? No. They have a cultural affinity with their culture and close ties to their culture, and that's how they want it to be. And this is a multicultural environment, and you have a problem with that, because if you do, you're a fucking Nazi. So there's a few things here now. Hey, hold on, stop. We're told that the only migrants that can come to Australia are people who have qualifications and skills and speak good English. We're assured that. The government tells us that's how it is. No one's getting in here unless they speak good English and they've got recognised qualifications and skills needed in the economy. So how did this person, get into Australia? Because they clearly meet none of the criteria. Now, if you look at the point system that the skilled migration point system that Australia supposedly has, and then you look at this guy, this family here, they wouldn't even make half the points necessary to be able to get. So how did they actually get through? Was it skilled migration? Are they refugees, or some refugees from what exactly? If they're going back to India every year and sending money, I can't imagine they'd be refugees. So it must somehow they just slipped through the migration system. Now you think the article would cover that. Well, how come this low-skilled, illiterate, peasant is here in Australia? I mean, surely we could have found more qualified people to come here. I mean, what's this guy doing? So the questions that the article should be asking, and they've purposefully picked low-skilled, illiterate, brown people to say, well, look how tough they're doing it. Look how they're suffering. But wait a minute, are you sending money back to your relatives in India? If things are so tight that you can't afford to live here, why are you sending that money back? Similarly, there's now 5 of you have to travel back to India each year to keep culturally connected. Why? And now that's something that's non-negotiable. They have to do that. So other things have to suffer because they must go back to India once a year. So I don't understand that. The normal thing would be, well, Prakash just has to damn well make some economies. I mean, he has to he can't go to India this year. Maybe he'll have to wait till next year, or and so on. But no, they're portrayed as victims of the cost increases, and they're suffering way worse victimhood than any white person ever could. But just looking through the article, I mean, you have to knock it out. But they're being portrayed as victims. They're oppressed victims in a strange, hostile, alien country, and surrounded by Nazis, which is, of course, quite absurd. Now, is there any mention that the reason energy prices are going through the roof is because of the insane green policies? Is that mentioned? No. Is that the reason rents are going through the roof is because of people just like him that are coming in by the hundreds upon hundreds of thousands, and that offshore investors are allowed to buy up swathes of real estate and then leave it vacant? That's the reason rents are so high. Is that no, not mentioned? The COVID lockdowns mentioned. The price of food going up because of supply chain disruptions and energy prices. None of that's mentioned. So they're selling the entire cost of living increase as just being some natural organic event that no one can do anything about, and nothing can be done about it, and therefore don't even talk about it. No mention made of mass migration, nothing like that at all. So it just goes to show the lengths that the media, the globalist controlled media, are going to not only protect mass migration, pretend it's either a non-issue or something completely natural. And also they're assuming that the lifestyle of these people, sending money back to their home country, their relatives in India, the annual trip for cultural connect, all this sort of stuff, that this is somehow white people's fault. And that if more and more Indians are here, if they could bring their entire family, their entire village, the entire nation of 1.45 billion Indians could come here, then they wouldn't need to go back to India because all the Indians would be here. I mean, you can't believe you're reading this crap. But it's the lies and the untruths that drive you insane. And it can't be that the journalists or the writers or whatever don't know. They know there's mass migration. They know it contributes to the cost of very substantially contributes to the cost of living. But there you go. You're with Tastus today, your Pushback channel. Thank you for listening.